Captain Park Ji-won sat in his command chair, staring at the endless darkness of space through the bridge windows. The used Dauntless moved slowly through the void, her engines humming softly. This was his third year commanding the Deep Space Patrol vessel, and he knew every sound the ship made. Right now, everything was quiet and normal. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim Min-ho called from his station. "We're picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Park turned his chair toward the tactical officer. Min-ho was young but sharp, with quick eyes that missed nothing. "What kind of strange?" "It looks like a signal, sir. Very faint, coming from the Vega system." Sergeant Lee Yuna looked up from her communications console. She was the best-com specialist in the fleet, able to pull signals out of static that other people couldn't even hear. "I'm getting it too, Captain. It's not human." Park felt his stomach tighten. First contact protocols were clear and strict. Any alien signal had to be reported to Earth Command immediately. No exceptions. Put it on speakers. The bridge filled with a sound unlike anything they had ever heard. It was musical, like wind chimes mixed with whale song. But underneath the beautiful tones, there was something else: fear, pain, desperation. "Can you clean it up?" Park asked. Yuna's fingers flew over her controls. "Working on it, sir. The signal is very weak." "It's been traveling for months, maybe years?" Commander Choi Hyok stepped onto the bridge from the engineering section. He was older than the rest of them, with gray hair and steady hands that could fix anything. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the Vega system. Whatever's happening there, it's big." The alien music continued to play, rising and falling in waves. Even without understanding the language, they could all hear the crying in it. Someone was asking for help. "Got it," Yuna said suddenly. Her translation computer beeped and started working. "The computer is trying to build a language pattern. Give me a few minutes." Park stood up and walked to the main view screen. The Vega system was 3 days away at maximum speed. By the time they got there, whatever was happening might be over. But something about the signal made his chest feel tight. He had heard fear before in the voices of ship crews calling for rescue. This was different. This was the sound of an entire people crying out. "Captain," Yuna said quietly, "I think I have something." The speakers crackled, and then a voice spoke in broken electronic English. The translation computer was doing its best to convert the alien words. "Anyone, please. We are dying. Our children. They take our children. We have no weapons. We do not know fighting. Please. If anyone hears ... we need help. We are ... Kalahari. Our world is ... Tethros. They came from the dark and we cannot stop them. Our little ones cry and we cannot save them. Please ... Anyone ... Quote the message repeated over and over. Each time the voice sounded weaker, the bridge was silent. Park could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He looked around at his crew. Minho's hands were clenched into fists. Yuna had tears in her eyes. Hyok was staring at the deck, his jaw tight. "Sir," Minho said carefully, "Earth Command needs to know about this." Park nodded. "Send the signal to headquarters." "Full priority." Yuna started typing, but then she stopped. "Captain, there's more coming in." The speakers came alive again, but this time the voice was different, younger, a child. "Mama, Mama, where are you?" The tall dark ones took Papa. "I'm scared." "I'm so scared, Mama. Please come find me, please." The child's voice broke into sobs that needed no translation. Lieutenant Minho stood up so fast his chair fell over. "Captain, we have to do something. Sit down, Lieutenant." Park's voice was steady, but inside he was burning. "We follow protocol." "Protocol?" Minho's voice cracked. "Sir, they're killing children." Commander Hyok spoke up. "Jiwon, how long until we get orders from Earth?" Park did the math in his head. 2 weeks, maybe 3. These people don't have 3 weeks, Hyok said quietly. Another voice came through the speakers. An adult, speaking fast and scared. "The harvesters are coming to our village. We tried to hide, but they found us. They are taking everyone. Our fighters are dead, all dead. We do not know how to fight these creatures. If anyone hears this, please remember us. Remember the Kalahari. We tried to be good people." Silence fell. On the bridge again. Park closed his eyes and tried to think. The non-interference directive was clear. Humanity did not get involved in alien wars. It was the law, but as he stood there, listening to the desperate voices of a dying people, Park remembered something his grandfather had told him. His grandfather had been a soldier in the old wars on Earth. Jiwan, the old man had said, sometimes the right thing and the legal thing are different. When that happens, you have to choose what you can live with. Park opened his eyes and looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting. Yuna, he said slowly. Yes, sir? Can you send a message back to them? Yuna's eyes went wide. Sir, that would be breaking protocol. I know. Can you do it? She looked down at her controls, then back at him. Yes, sir. I can do it. Send this message. Kalahari people, this is Captain Park Jawan of the human ship Dauntless. We hear your call. For help. Help is coming. Stay strong. Yuna's fingers hesitated over the controls. That's an order, Sergeant. She typed in the message and hit send. Park turned to face his crew. Hayok, how fast can we get to the Vega system? The engineer smiled grimly. If I push the engines past their limits. 2 days. Do it, Minho. Prepare all weapon systems. Check. Every missile, every gun, every piece of equipment. Sir, Minho said carefully, we're just one ship. Park walked back to his command chair and sat down. And then we better make it count. Set course for Ethros, maximum speed. As the Dauntless turned toward the Vega system, Park listened to the alien voices still calling out in the darkness. Someone was hurting children, and that was something he could not allow. Earth Command would be angry. He might lose his command, his career, everything, but right now, none of that mattered. Captain, Yuna said softly, we just got a response. From the Kalahari. What do they say? Thank you. They say thank you? Park nodded and watched the stars begin to move faster as the ship accelerated. In 2 days, they would reach Ethros. He had no idea what they would find there, but he knew. One thing for certain, the crying would stop. The Dauntless dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vega system. Captain Park Ji-won stood on the bridge, watching the main screen as sensors painted a picture of horror. My God, Lieutenant Minho whispered. Ethros hung in. Space like a wounded animal. The planet's blue-green surface was marked with dark scars where cities had been burned. Massive alien ships surrounded the world, their black hulls shaped like the shells of giant insects. They moved in slow circles, like vultures waiting for something to die. How many ships? Park asked. Minho checked his sensors. 37. Capital ships? Maybe twice that in smaller vessels? Captain, they're huge. Some of those things are 5 times our size. Commander Hayok moved to the sensor station and looked at the readings. Those aren't warships, he said quietly. Look at the energy patterns. They're harvesters. Harvesters? Park asked. Industrial ships. Built to strip mine entire planets. They're not just conquering that world, Captain. They're eating it. Sergeant Yuna had been trying to establish communications with the planet. Sir, I'm getting scattered. Signals from the surface. The Kalahari are still down there, but barely. Most of their cities are gone. Park studied the alien fleet. Each ship was a nightmare of black metal and sharp edges, covered in weapon ports and docking bays. They looked like something built by creatures that had never learned the concept of beauty, only function and fear. Can we get closer without being detected? Hayok nodded. There's an asteroid field on the far side of the system. We can hide in there and get a better look. The Dauntless moved carefully through the asteroids, using their bulk to hide from the alien sensors. As they got closer, the true size of the enemy fleet became clear. The smallest ships were twice the size of their patrol vessel. Captain, Yuna said, her voice tight. I'm picking up transmissions from the planet. The translation computer is working on them. The speakers filled with voices speaking in the musical language of the Kalahari. But now the computer could translate some of the words. Sector 7 is lost. The harvesters took everyone. The children's shelter in the North Valley, it's gone, all gone. We tried to fight, but our tools cannot hurt them. What are we supposed to do? Then came a voice that made Park's blood run cold. It spoke in a different language, harsh and clicking, like insects talking. The computer translated it too. Harvest quota for today, 1,500 breeding specimens. Priority on young and healthy, dispose of the old ones. Breeding specimens? Minho said, his voice shaking with anger. Another alien voice came through. The meat from this world is soft and sweet. Save some for the officer's feast. Yuna turned away from her console, her face pale. Park felt something dark and hot growing in his chest. These weren't soldiers fighting a war. They were predators playing with their food. Captain, Hayek said. Urgently, I'm reading massive energy spikes from the largest ship. They're charging some kind of weapon. On the screen, they watched as a beam of pure energy lanced down from the alien flagship to the planet's surface. Where it hit, a bright flash appeared. When the light faded, a city was gone. Just ... Gone. 20 million people lived in that city, Yuna whispered. Reading the old survey data from her files, the alien voices came through the speakers again, casual and pleased. Good shot. That will make room for the new mining facility. Should we harvest the survivors? No need, let them starve. Easier to process the bodies later. Park had heard enough. He turned to Minho. Get me everything you can on those ships. Weapons, shields, weak points, everything. Sir, even if we knew every detail, we're one ship against an entire fleet. Then we better be smart about it. Park looked at his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes. But there was something else there, too. The same dark fire. He felt burning in his own chest. Yuna worked at her station, trying to reach the Kalahari on the planet below. After several minutes, she looked up. Captain, I have contact with someone on the surface. She says her name is Silandra. She's some kind of leader. Put her through. The speakers crackled, and a voice spoke in heavily accented English. Human. Ship? You are real? We thought. We hoped, but we did not dare believe. This is Captain Park of the human vessel Dauntless. We received your distress signal. Captain Park. The alien woman's voice broke. They have taken so many of our people. Our children, Captain. They take our children and we do not know what they do to them. We are not fighters, we do not know how to stop them. How many of your people are left? Maybe 2 million on the whole planet. We were 50 million when they came. That was 6 months ago. Park closed his eyes. 48 million people dead. In 6 months. Silandra, can you tell me about these aliens? What do they call themselves? They are the Vorthek. They came from the dark between stars. They do not speak to us except to give orders. They treat us like animals for slaughter. Commander. Hayek was running scans on the alien ships. Captain, I think I know what's happening here. Look at these energy patterns. They're not just harvesting people, they're strip mining the entire planet. The metals, the water, everything. When they're done, Ethros will be a dead rock. How long until they finish? At their current rate. Maybe 2 weeks? Park felt the fire in his chest grow hotter. 2 weeks to kill an entire world. 2 weeks to murder every Kalahari child, every family, every hope and dream that had ever existed on Ethros. Silandra, he said into the communicator. We're going to help you. Captain, her voice was small and full of tears. You are only one small ship. They are so many. Sometimes one ship is enough. Can you gather your people? Get them to safe places? We have some shelters in the deep caves. But the Vorthag have sensors. They always find us. Lieutenant Minho was studying the tactical display. Captain, I think I see something. Those harvesters ... They're not well armed. Most of their weapons are for ground bombardment, not ship-to-ship combat. What about their escorts? Maybe a dozen real warships. The rest are just cargo haulers and mining equipment. Park nodded slowly. An idea was forming in his mind. A terrible, dangerous idea that would probably get them all killed. But as he listened to Silandra's quiet sobs coming through the speakers, he knew it was the only choice they had. Hayek, can you create a diversion? Something big enough to draw their attention? The engineer smiled grimly. I can rig some of these asteroids to explode. Make it look like a natural collision. That should get them interested. Do it, Minho. I want you to study those escort ships. Find their weaknesses. Sir, what are you planning? Park looked at the alien fleet on the screen. They moved in lazy patterns around Ethros, confident and unconcerned. They had never met humans before. They didn't know what humans were capable of when someone hurt their friends. We're going to teach the Vorthak a lesson, Park said quietly. We're going to show them what happens when you make children cry. On the planet below, more cities burned as the harvesters continued their work. But for the first time in 6 months, the Kalahari had hope. Help had come from the stars, the monsters. We're about to learn that humans could be monsters too. Captain Park watched the tactical display as Commander Hayok finished preparing the asteroid trap. The plan was simple and probably suicidal, but it was the only chance they had. Charges are set, Hayok reported. When those asteroids collide, it's going to look like a natural disaster. Should draw some of their ships over to investigate. Lieutenant Minho had been studying the Vorthak fleet for hours. Captain, I think I found something. Their escort ships have heavy armor in front, but their rear sections are much weaker, probably to save weight. What about their harvesters? Big and slow. If we can separate them from their escorts, they're sitting ducks. Sergeant Yuna looked up from her communications station. Sir, Salandra says the Vorthak are planning another major harvest tomorrow. They're going to hit the refugee camps in the southern mountains. She thinks maybe 500,000 people are hiding there. Park felt his jaw clench. 500,000 innocent people waiting to be slaughtered like cattle. He looked around at his crew. They were scared but determined. Good. Fear would keep them alive. Determination would help them win. All right, people. Here's what we're going to do. Hayok triggers the asteroid collision. When the Vorthak ships come to investigate, we hit them hard and fast. No mercy, no hesitation. We make them pay for every Kalahari life they've taken. Sir, Minho said carefully, there are 37 capital ships out there. Even if we take out a few, the rest will hunt us down. Park smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then we make sure they remember why humans are apex predators. Hayok activated the charges. Deep in the asteroid field, carefully placed explosives pushed 2 large rocks into each other. The collision was spectacular, sending debris flying in all directions and creating a massive energy signature that lit up every sensor in the system. Here they come, Minho reported. 4 escort ships and 2 harvesters moving to investigate. The Dauntless powered up its engines and weapons. Park had served in the human military for 15 years, but he had never felt like this before. There was something primitive awakening in his mind, something that remembered when humans hunted much larger predators on the plains of ancient Earth. Target the lead escort, Park ordered. Full missile spread. The human ship emerged from the asteroid field like a ghost, weapons blazing. Their first salvo caught the Vorthak completely by surprise. Missiles slammed into the alien ship's weak rear armor, tearing through hull plating and internal systems. Direct hit, Minho shouted. Their shields are down. Again, pour everything into them. The Dauntless's guns spoke again and again. The Vorthak ship tried to turn and bring its heavy forward weapons to bear, but Park was already moving. Human ships were built to be fast and agile, not heavily armored like the alien vessels. Their escort is breaking apart, Hayok reported. Massive internal explosions. The first Vorthak ship died in a ball of fire and twisted metal. Its companions finally realized what was happening and began to respond, but Park was already targeting. The next vessel, evasive maneuvers, he ordered. Don't let them get a lock on us. The Dauntless danced between the asteroids, using the rocky debris as cover. Energy beams from the alien ships turned stone to vapor, but the human ship was always somewhere else, striking from unexpected angles. Yuna was monitoring the Vorthak communications. Captain, they're calling for help. More ships are coming. How many? All of them. Park felt a cold smile spread across his face. Good, let them come. The second escort ship tried to ram them, using its massive bulk as a weapon. But Minho had been studying their movement patterns. At the last second, the Dauntless rolled sideways and fired directly into the alien ship's bridge. The command section exploded, sending the vessel spinning out of control. "Two down," Minho reported. "But we've got 8 more closing fast." Park looked at the tactical display. The entire Vorthik fleet was moving toward them now, a wall of black metal and destructive power. Any sane person would run. Any reasonable captain would retreat and call for backup, but Park was thinking about Kalahari children crying for their parents. He was thinking about cities full of innocent people being harvested like crops. And something very old and very angry was waking up in his human brain. "Hayok, can you overload the reactor?" The engineer looked shocked. "Sir, that would destroy the ship and us. Not if we do it right. Can you set it to go critical and then stabilize it at the last second?" Hayok's eyes lit up with understanding. "You want to turn our reactor into a bomb. Can you do it? Give me 5 minutes." The remaining Vorthak ships were closing the distance. Park ordered evasive maneuvers, using every trick he had learned in 20 years of spaceflight. The Dauntless twisted and dove through the asteroid field, its hull groaning under the stress. "Reactor is ready," Hayok announced. "But Captain, this is insane. If I miss the timing by even a second?" "I trust you." The Vorthak fleet surrounded them now, energy weapons lighting up space like a deadly fireworks show. The Dauntless's shields were failing, her armor cracking under the assault. "Now!" Park shouted. Hayok triggered the reactor overload. For a moment, the ship's engine section glowed like a small star. Energy readings went off the scale. The Vorthak ships, sensing the massive power buildup, tried to pull back. They were too late. The explosion engulfed half the asteroid field. When the light faded, 12 Vorthak ships were gone, reduced to glowing vapor and scattered debris. The shockwave sent the survivors tumbling through space, their systems overloaded and their crews stunned, but the Dauntless was still there. At the last possible second, Hayok had stabilized the reactor, channeling the explosion outward instead of inward. The ship was damaged and badly hurt, but she was alive. "Damage report," Park called out. "Shields are gone," Minho reported. "Weapons are at 30%. We're leaking atmosphere from 6 different hull breaches." "But we're alive," Yuna added. With amazement, "How are we still alive?" Hayok grinned from his engineering station. "Because humans are too stubborn to die." On the tactical display, the surviving Vorthak ships were regrouping. They had learned to respect the human vessel. But they were still coming. There were too many of them. "Captain," Yuna said urgently, "I'm getting a transmission from the planet. Salandra wants to speak with you." "Put her through." The Kalahari leader's voice came through the speakers, but now it was different, stronger. "Captain Park, we saw the lights in the sky. You fought them. You made them afraid. We did our best, Salandra. But there are still too many of them. We know. But you have given us something we had lost. You have given us hope. And you have shown us that these monsters can be hurt." Park frowned. "What are you saying?" "We are learning, Captain." "You showed us that fighting is possible. Some of our people are remembering old stories, old ways. We may be peaceful, but we are not helpless." On the sensors, Park could see energy signatures moving on the planet's surface. The Kalahari were doing something. "Down there, Salandra, what's happening?" "We are preparing to fight back. The way you taught us. We studied your attack patterns. We learned from your tactics, and we are very, very angry." For the first time since arriving at Ethros, Park felt something like hope. The Kalahari were learning to fight. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was teaching others how to be dangerous. "All right," he told his crew. "Round 2. Let's show these Vorthak what happens when you wake up sleeping giants." The battle for Ethros was just beginning. The Dauntless limped toward Ethros, her hull scarred and her systems failing. Captain Park had made a decision that would have seemed impossible just days before. They were going to land on the planet and continue the fight from the ground. "Captain, this is crazy," Lieutenant Minho said as he watched the surviving Vorthak ships pursuing them. "We'll be trapped down there." "Maybe," Park replied, "but the Kalahari need teachers, and we need to get close enough to hurt the enemy where it counts." Commander. Hayok was working miracles to keep the ship flying. I can give you one landing, Captain. Maybe after that we're not getting back into space. That's all we need. Sergeant Yuna had been in constant contact with Salandra during their descent. Sir, she says they've prepared a landing site in the mountains, hidden from orbital sensors. The ship shuddered as Vorthic energy beams lanced past them. Park gripped his command chair and watched the planet grow larger on the screen. Ethros was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents that reminded him of Earth, but now it was covered with the dark scars of Vorthic mining operations. They landed hard in a mountain valley, the ship's hull groaning as it settled onto the rocky ground. Through the viewports, Park could see figures moving in the shadows. The Kalahari had come to meet them. "Weapons and supplies," Park ordered. "Everything we can carry. We're not coming back to the ship." The crew gathered their equipment and prepared to leave their home for the last 4 years. As they stepped out of the airlock, Park got his first look at the people they had come to save. The Kalahari were beautiful in a way that took his breath away. They were tall and graceful, with large eyes and skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. They moved like dancers, even when they were afraid. But Park could see the fear in their faces, the trauma of months of horror. Salandra stepped forward. She was younger than Park had expected, maybe equivalent to a human in her 30s. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and there were healing wounds on her arms. "Captain Park," she said in her musical accent. "You came down to us? You left your ship?" "Our ship was dying anyway," Park replied. "And you need help more than we need to be in space. The Vorthic will come for you now. They will hunt you like they hunt us." Park looked around at the Kalahari. Refugees hiding in the mountain caves. There were thousands of them, including many children. The young ones stayed close to their parents, their large eyes wide with fear. "Then we teach you to hunt them back," he said. Over the next few days, something remarkable happened. The humans began training the Kalahari in the art of war. It was like teaching poetry to wolves or mathematics to tigers. The Kalahari had minds that could understand complex patterns and strategies, but they had never applied these gifts to violence. Lieutenant Minho worked with a group of young Kalahari males, teaching them about ambush tactics and guerrilla warfare. One of them, a refugee named Zender, proved to be a quick learner. "Your people move so quietly," Minho told him. "You could sneak up on anyone." "We used to hunt the wind deer in the forests," Zender replied, "but we never killed them. We would touch them and let them go." "Well, now you're going to hunt something else, and this time you don't let them go." Sergeant Yuna spent her time teaching the Kalahari about communications and coordination. Their natural musical language was perfect for coded messages that the Vorthic couldn't understand. "You can coordinate attacks across the entire continent," she explained to a group of Kalahari leaders. "Your voices carry further than our radios." But it was Commander Hayok who made the biggest difference. He taught the Kalahari how to turn their own technology into weapons. Mining equipment became bombs. Agricultural chemicals became poison gas. Transportation systems became traps. "Your people built all this to create and nurture life," he told Salandra as they worked on converting a fertilizer plant into an explosive factory. "Now we turn it into tools of destruction." "Is this what humans are like?" she asked. "Always thinking of new ways to kill?" Hayok paused in his work. "We're also thinking of new ways to protect the people we care about. That's what makes us dangerous to our enemies." The changes in the Kalahari were dramatic and frightening. Zender went from a gentle gardener to a cold-eyed killer who could move through Vorthic camps like a ghost. Other young Kalahari learned to set traps that would have impressed human special forces soldiers, but the most important change was in their attitudes. The helpless despair was being replaced by something much more dangerous, focused rage. "Captain." Park saw it happening during a planning session in one of the cave complexes. Salandra was explaining the layout of a Vorthic processing center where thousands of Kalahari were being held. "They keep the children in the East Wing," she said, her voice steady and cold. "The adults are in the West Wing. They separate families, so we cannot comfort each other." Zender studied the crude map they had drawn. If we hit the power generators first, their security systems will fail, then we can free everyone. What about the guards? Another Kalahari asked. Zender's expression didn't change. We kill them all. Park felt a chill run down his spine. 3 weeks ago, this being had never hurt another living creature. Now he was planning mass murder with the efficiency of a human soldier. Meanwhile, space around Ethros was becoming very interesting. The Dauntless had sent out a distress signal before landing, and that signal had reached human space. The response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human merchant ships arrived first, their cargo holds filled with weapons and supplies. Corporate security vessels came next, followed by military patrol ships from a dozen different systems. But most surprising of all were the civilian volunteers, human families, who had heard about the Kalahari children packed their personal ships with medical supplies and food. Retired soldiers came out of retirement to join the fight. Even human teenagers too young for military service found ways to help, using their computer skills to hack Vorthic communications. Admiral Beek Suho arrived in command of a human battle group, but he found something that amazed him. The Vorthak fleet was in complete disarray. Their ships were under constant attack from the planet's surface. Kalahari, using human weapons and tactics, were hitting supply lines, communication centers, and command posts. Captain Park, the Admiral's voice came through Yuna's portable communicator. What have you done down there? Park looked around at his. Kalahari lies. They were cleaning their weapons after a successful raid on a Vorthak garrison. Their movements were efficient and deadly, nothing like the graceful dancers they had been just weeks before. We taught them to fight back, sir. The Vorthic Empire has sent a message to Earth Command. They're demanding that we withdraw or face full-scale war. Park smiled grimly. What did Earth Command say? They told the Vorthic that humans don't negotiate with child killers. The entire Third Fleet is being mobilized. Solandra approached Park during the conversation. Captain, our scouts report that the Vorthak are pulling their harvesters back to orbit. They're preparing to destroy the planet from space rather than continue fighting on the ground. Park nodded. The enemy had finally realized what they were facing. Humans didn't just fight wars. They taught other species to fight wars. And now the Kalahari were no longer victims, they were predators. Admiral, Park said into the communicator, how long until the Third Fleet arrives? 72 hours. Park looked at his alien allies, their eyes bright with the fire of righteous anger. We'll hold until then. But sir, when this is over, I think the galaxy is going to be a very different place. How so, Captain? Because we just taught a peaceful species how to wage war, and they're very good students. The final battle for Ethros began at dawn. The Vorthak had decided to end the resistance once and for all by burning the entire planet from orbit. Their massive harvesters powered up their mining lasers, preparing to turn the world into molten rock. They never got the chance. Admiral Beek Suho's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel like the fist of an angry god. 50 human warships materialized in perfect battle formation, their weapons already charging. But these weren't just military vessels. Behind them came hundreds of civilian ships, merchant marines, corporate security fleets, and even converted passenger liners bristling with improvised weapons. This is Admiral Suho to all Vorthak vessels, the human commander broadcast on all frequencies. You have one chance to surrender. Leave the system immediately or be destroyed. The Vorthak. Response was predictable. Their largest dreadnought fired its main weapon at the human flagship. The energy beam struck the Admiral's shields and dissipated harmlessly. I was hoping you'd say that, Suho replied. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The humans had been preparing for this fight for weeks. Every dirty trick, every psychological warfare technique, every creative use of technology that humanity had ever developed was unleashed on the Vorthak. Fleet. Captain Park watched from the planet's surface as the sky filled with explosions. The human ships moved like wolves, coordinating their attacks with deadly precision. They used the Vorthak's own communications against them, broadcasting the screams of dying aliens on their command frequencies. They turned captured Vorthak ships into guided missiles, packing them with explosives and ramming them into enemy vessels. But the most devastating weapon was the one the humans had been preparing in secret. Every ship in the human fleet was equipped with recordings of Kalahari children crying for their parents. These sounds were broadcast on every frequency, a constant reminder of what the Vorthek had done. Lieutenant Minho, fighting alongside a Kalahari strike team on the planet, listened to the alien communications that Yuna was intercepting. "They're breaking apart up there, Captain." "The Vorthak aren't used to psychological warfare," Park nodded. "The Vorthak were predators, but they were simple predators. They understood fear when they caused it, but they had never experienced true terror themselves. Now they were learning what it felt like to be hunted by something more dangerous than they were." On the ground, the Kalahari resistance was showing the galaxy something it had never seen before. These gentle beings, transformed by human training and their own righteous anger, fought with a combination of grace and brutality that was uniquely terrifying. Zender led an assault on the main Vorthak command center. Moving through the alien base like a deadly shadow, he eliminated guards with weapons and techniques that would have impressed human special forces. But it was his expression that would have frightened them. The young Kalahari's face showed no emotion at all as he killed the creatures that had murdered his family. Commander Hayok had taught the Kalahari to turn their own infrastructure into weapons, and now those lessons paid off. Mining explosives brought down Vorthak facilities. Agricultural equipment became delivery systems for chemical weapons. Even the planet's weather control systems were weaponized, creating storms that grounded enemy aircraft. Sergeant Yuna coordinated the attacks from her position in the mountain caves. Her communications equipment allowed her to direct Kalahari forces across the entire planet, turning scattered resistance groups into a unified army, but it was Salandra who delivered the killing blow too. Vorthak Morale, the Kalahari leader, had been captured during a raid on a processing facility, but her capture was intentional. She allowed herself to be taken to the Vorthak flagship, where the enemy commander was coordinating the orbital bombardment. General Kraftok was a massive creature, even by Vorthak standards. His carapace was scarred from 100 battles, and his mandibles dripped with the paralytic venom that his species used to subdue prey. He had personally overseen the destruction of 47 worlds. "So," he clicked at Salandra in broken Kalahari, "the little prey thing thinks it can fight." "Back?" Salandra looked up at the alien general with eyes that showed no fear. "I learned from the humans. They taught me many things. The humans are just another species to be harvested. We will take their children next." "No," Salandra said quietly. "You won't." The Kalahari leader moved faster than any being her size should have been able to move. In her hand was a small device that Commander Hayok had built from common mining equipment. She pressed it against the general's carapace and activated it. The explosion was small, barely enough to damage the ship's hull, but it was placed precisely at the weak point where the general's head joined his thorax. General Kraftok died instantly, his body crashing to the deck like a felled tree. "That was for my children," Salandra said to his corpse. The death of their supreme commander broke the Vorthak fleet's will to fight. Already battered by the human assault and demoralized by the psychological warfare, they began to surrender or flee. Those that tried to escape found their path blocked by more human ships arriving from every direction. "Admiral," Suho's voice echoed across the battlefield. "To any Vorthak vessel attempting to flee, you participated in genocide. There is no escape, there is no mercy, there is only justice." The battle ended 12 hours after it began. Of the original Vorthak fleet of 200 ships, only 3 survived. They were allowed to limp back to their home territory, their hulls scarred and their crews traumatized. They carried with them a message that would spread throughout the galaxy. Captain Park stood in the ruins of a Vorthak base, surrounded by his crew and their Kalahari allies. The aliens had been transformed by their experience. They still moved with their natural grace, but now there was something else in their movements. A readiness, a willingness to fight that hadn't existed before. "What happens now?" Zender asked. The young Kalahari was cleaning a human rifle with the practiced ease of a veteran soldier. Now we rebuild, Park replied. Your people are free. Your world is yours again. And what about the other worlds? The other species that the Vorthik enslaved? Park looked up at the sky, where human ships were beginning the long process of hunting down fleeing Vorthak vessels. That's not your problem anymore. Humanity has made the Kalahari our friends, and we protect our friends. Salandra approached. The group, her robes stained with Vorthak blood. Captain Park, our people owe you a debt we can never repay. You don't owe us anything, but I have a question for you. What is it? Your people learned to fight very quickly. Almost too quickly. Why? Salandra was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at him with eyes that held depths he hadn't seen before. Because we were not always peaceful, Captain. Long ago, our ancestors were hunters too. We chose to forget that part of ourselves. But when our children were threatened, we remembered. Park nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand something important about the galaxy. Every species had the capacity for violence. Most chose to suppress it to build civilizations based on cooperation and peace. But when pushed too far, when their young were threatened, they could all remember what they had once been. The humans had simply been better at remembering. Over the following weeks, as the human fleet completed its destruction of Vorthak forces, throughout the system, word of the battle spread across the galaxy. The story grew in the telling as stories do. But the core message was clear and unmistakable. Humanity had answered a cry for help with fire and wrath. They had adopted an alien species as friends and family. And anyone who threatened the innocent, anyone who preyed on the defenseless, would face the same fate as the Vorthik. The galaxy's predatory species suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders, wondering if humans were watching them too. The peaceful species began to hope that maybe, just maybe, they had found protectors who would never abandon them, and in the rebuilt cities of Ethros, Kalahari children played games that their grandparents would never have recognized. Games about brave human ships and clever tactics. Games about protecting the weak and fighting the monsters. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans were dangerous not just because they were good at war, but because they were good at teaching others to wage war. They created allies out of victims and turned the hunted into hunters. Captain Park Jiwon stood on the observation deck of a new human base on Ethros, watching Kalahari and human children playing together in the gardens below. The young ones were laughing and running, free from the fear that had haunted their parents. Captain, Sergeant Yuna said, joining him at the window. We just received a message from Earth Command. The Third Fleet is being deployed to the Rigel system. Apparently there's been another distress call. Park smiled. Another species in trouble? The Zentrans. Peaceful traders being enslaved by something called the hegemony. How long until we get there? 2 weeks, sir. Park watched the children play for another moment, then turned toward the door. Better get the ship ready, Sergeant. Sounds like someone else needs to learn about human friendship. As they walked toward the spaceport, Park reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The Vorthak Empire was broken and scattered. The Kalahari were no longer victims, but allies and friends. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars,